Good morning. Wednesday, March 19th. We are going to spend some time talking about herd management technologies. We've got Rep. John O'Brien and Daniel Smith in here today. And who would like to lead off the report today?
Yeah. Oh, you did? Yeah. Session. Okay.
Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning.
Originally going to be a lunch meeting with Senator Colin Moore, turned into a
Well,
morning.
he was worried that
testifying,
he was worried that you were going to ask him to pay.
yes. For the record, Representative John O'Brien, Winter Ward 1, that's Royalton, and my hometown coverage, home of the World's Fair. I'm here just to really introduce Dan Smith, who was I think the former chair, Star, was the energy and thought behind this new technology. Dan gave you a report earlier already.
Yeah.
About this. And last year, I think there was appropriation of $200,000 to support the pilot program for this, and it went really well. And I think another year of some sort of support, a lot of sense, just the way that a lot of technology and agricultural technology needs some sort of boost, oftentimes from either state government or universities, and to get to that point where commercially it's new technology is accepted and sort of can go from there. And I think just in conversations with Dan that any kind of funding we could find could be leveraged by 2 or 3 times. There are other, and I think we haven't done it, but I think both House Ag, maybe Senate Ag, should look into places like FPR, because this technology, I was thinking on the way up, is ideally suited for, say, fighting invasives, which is a big deal. There's money there for it. And maybe instead of using, say, pesticides on controlling invasives, with goats, this is sort of the ideal technology to have a browse and at the same time get rid of invasives. So I don't think anybody's doing anything new, but it'd be worth looking into. Also, the Dairy Business Innovation Center, I could see some chance there for something like this, because we're really at the forefront of experimenting with this in this country. I think in places like Scandinavia, it's really caught on. And just our landscape here, it makes a lot of sense for too. Because things like ski areas, utilities, riverbank control, things like Japanese Nazi, and also UVM extension. I think we should try to loop into this because they do great work, and I can see that somebody in there, they have so many really deep thinkers and research experts out there doing great stuff that I think they might be interested in this, taking it a step further. So that's where I'm at. I would support it in House Ag.
Yes. So thank you, Mr. Chair. We had the advantage last year, John, of having 2 members of this committee also serve on the Senate Appropriations Committee, Senator Westman and Senator Starr. And to be honest, I don't know where we did wind up finding that funding. Maybe Dan can remember. It seemed like it came from a source that it just went through without, a lot of explosion. So I don't know what we did last year, how we found it, but I think you're right. I think it was 200. And I think the technology has proven itself. We've had Dan in already this year. I don't know if he's been in House Ag yet.
Yes. Yep.
And last year we had some really powerful testimony, visual testimony of how things work. You can literally sit at a machine or a computer and change the boundaries. So I think it works. We just have to figure a way to And those were great suggestions. I hadn't thought about UVM or Orton Parks, but yeah, I think those are. Did your committee take any testimony on about finding any funding, or was it just sort of a?
We haven't,
No, okay.
but we could do that. Yeah,
I think that's, in a year where money's different,
for sure.
it'll be tough. I think a lot of people are gonna see that a lot of this, no matter how the benefit is, as a private enterprise venture, of a company coming in and trying to sell, to agriculture. But when money's freer, a lot easier.
Yes.
But I agree with your opening remarks about especially things that people don't think about, natural ways to get away or to rid of invasive species. I agree with all that, but it's going to be hard to find some money.
Yeah. For sure. Yeah, and yeah, but we haven't had, say, Commissioner Fitzgerald come in,
Mhm.
and say, what is your budget for fighting invasives, and is there a way that you could do a pilot?
Yeah.
Or Laura Ginsburg and say, is there anything of the DPIC that we might be able to use with cattle for this? Because they do support a lot of with grants.
Well,
Like research and technology.
I was talking to Anson just barely about the $1.7 million that is proposed to be cut. Into some of these helping to supply more foods of our local farmers into the local economy. And there's a lot of good news that's coming out of there. There's another $10 billion fund to do a lot like with the bill that we are almost passing. We should pass it today. Second reading was yesterday. And that's our resiliency bill, where we're asking for 7.5 million, which I think we stand a pretty good chance to get. But as news comes out of Washington, hype or not, there's certainly a lot of uncertainty with funding.
Yeah.
And it doesn't make it easy to be able to put your finger on something. This 1.7 million, if it ends up being the way that it is monies that the programs are in effect. There's been monies that have been paid out, and then people are hoping to buy all that money down. So again, it's going to be tough. To find the funding will be tough.
Yeah, and I agree. And I may be in talks with other partners, and even outside. I know the Lindline Foundation supported this pilot last year. There might be a way to, even if it's our support, say that we are AAFM, that, we're behind this, we want to see it go further.
Yeah. But we're here, so let's go through it.
Yeah.
So, let's hear, we'll have some questions, so.
Thanks for your time this morning.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Good to see you again.
Thank you.
Thank you. What topic?
I would break that one.
Yeah.
3.3.
Okay.
This is one?
Yeah.
There's three.
Yeah,
pieces.
that's all yours.
All right.
So
We're missing one for the chair.
One for the.
Well, and Senator Plunkett.
Yeah.
No, good. Okay. Just trying to
Okay.
arrange.
Yes.
Okay, so I'm Dan Smith, for the record. I'm the Executive Director of the Agritech Institute for Small Farms, former legislative counselor, and visited my old office, which is now the House Education Committee. Last week, that was a bit of a shocker to see, but the committee room was much nicer than my office was. So, I both John and the chair's conversation, I think, tee up the issues that we're talking about. One is what's the best way to implement the pilot in an effective way, and two, how to fund it. And I've been at this a long time. I've been here when there was money, and I've been here when there was no money, and I certainly understand the point. Basically what I'm looking to do is to both extend what I did last 2 years and expanded. And the expansion is just along the lines of what you're talking about. You'll see in the top is to continuation. We had 11 pilots, basically take 8 of them, I think it's the number, and continue them, and then add a few more. And the additions are more utility companies, another knotweed pilot to the point, and then a dairy farm in the milking house. What the pilot showed is that even though no fence says don't use the collars in the barn, we did one pilot in a goat farm where they used the collars in the barn, they didn't have a problem. And I've got a farm down at the Putney School that sounds like it could be a good match to try them in a dairy cattle barn. And the milk production increase on the goat farm allowed the collars to pay off in a year. And if that replicates on a small dairy farm, this could be a real boom to the small dairy operation.
I'm sorry, what was the reason? What was the reason, why, shouldn't use in a farm?
Yeah, good question. The no fence, pretty straightforward. The collars hang around the neck and going through a stanchion or a parlor that get fanged around and damaged. But it's larger scale as opposed to smaller scale. You can pad the piping, is what we're talking about doing, and reduce the potential for damage. And no fence is not worried about the functionality. It's just a mechanical thing. Yeah. So, yeah. So I am totally appreciative of what you said, Mr. Chair, and it's been my career is how does government help and then get out of the way with startup. And I think where this is at is that the technology is proving itself out basically, but the farmers are still skeptical, both because of certain applications, issues. They want to see more evidence, and second, cost. I would not have been able to engage. I had 7 farms. I think only 2 of them would have been able to engage without the offer of the collars use at no cost and the chance to buy them back with a finance program. And the finance program is not in place yet. No Fence is thinking about a lease program. I'm trying to do a revolving fund. It's still in process. So I think the government has a role in facilitating and rolling out with the farmers. And then on the other side, no way that either the utilities or the skiers would have gotten involved without some, I'll take some of the risk if you'll get involved. And I don't think we're beyond that point yet. So I think from a financing standpoint, it's government to private is really what we're talking about. And so from my end of trying to raise money, the fact that the legislature put in and supported this the last time is like having a backstop. And it really made it possible to go to private funders and say, there's a real support for doing this. And so that would be my pitch this time around. The legislature actually on the last page put up $150,000, and what I'm proposing this time around is $100,000. And last time on the second page of this handout was the budget for the last time around, and it's basically was 50-50 legislature to solar. I have some private donation grants. To John's point, DVSE put in what amounted to $45,000 the last time around. I'm looking to get a similar donation grant this time from the broadband board is interested in sort of a gap fill that cellular technology can provide for where their rollout of broadband is having some issues. And they're intrigued by what we're doing. I can't say I'll get it, but I think I can find some additional funding to make up what on the first page, the budget is less for this time around. I don't have to buy as much equipment. The Institute's time is less. So it's about 2/3 of what it was last, and I should be able to do quite a bit more for the money. So as I said, I've been at this a long time. I get the issues you folks are talking about, and I'm totally sensitive to it. So I think those are the highlights. I would accentuate, we did 2 utilities, Stowe Electric and Washington Electric. Stowe Electric's really interested in doing this. I think that they will come in and pay this time. I had to pay 2/3 the last time, 2/3 one time, third. I think they'll pay their share. Washington Electric, I think they may need a little bit of support. But again, get Velco and Vermont Electric to go along to expand it out, to try this out with utilities. It's going to require the Institute to defray some of the risk. Same with the ski areas. We're looking at likely cost effective to the ski area, but we haven't proven it out because it only done once. So I think if we can prove out in the second year that goats on ski trails is cost effective against weed whackers, then I think they'll come in. But it's a little bit of a show me, and there's a little bit of we've got the grazer, the ski area, and the Institute. The 3 ways can defray the cost and the risk a little bit, makes for a deal. So that's the basic design there. And on the knotweed side, you'll see in the program costs that the grazing specialists show up mostly there. It sounds like everybody here has had some personal experience with knotweed. And what we did a project, as I talked to you folks when I was here before, down in Londonderry, and goats could have a slogan: "Goats love knotweed." They love knotweed. The problem is they love it up to a point, and then they've had enough, and then they want to go eat something else. So the project the pilot needs to be designed. You can't just put goats out and say, "Go eat the knotweed." They'll actually go past the virtual fencing and take off. They've had enough and they'll take off. So there's got to be some design. And then the other piece of it is that in talking for the plan for going forward, we'd have to strip graze on a schedule. You put them in for a couple days and then you move them. And then a week later, you put them back in, and you have to rotate it. Could be 3 and 4 times over a 4 or 5 week period to kill the knotweed. So you don't just eat it down and then it comes right back up. So I've got to have some special knowledge brought to bear in that. That's the primary. I think on the utility side, it's going to help a little bit too, because we're trying to design the same idea. You want to take out the vegetation that you don't want. And then in the case of the utility line, you want to replace it with a grassier vegetation that will require less management in the future. And that's what the goats offer, that the mulching and chainsaws don't offer. So how do we best design that? Have the line folks at the utility, grazing specialists from UVM, to John's point, comes in. So that's what I'm looking to put together. And again, that's the role of a nonprofit institute as opposed to just the market doing it, because the market's just going to go bottom line, and which is what the utilities are doing. So if we can put a little bit of intellectual horsepower to bear, I think you get more bang for your buck. And that's the public interest, obviously. Here we could displace spraying on top of it. That's the public interest starts to appear. So that would be your investment there. So thanks for your time. The last handout, the report is now complete. This has the executive summary and the table of contents. Anybody it's 20 pages long. I don't expect too many people to read the whole thing. So there's a 2-page summary, and it's on request of anybody else that might read it.
Rep. O'Brien, and you guys get that in your committee as well?
No, but I'll share it with the chair.
Okay.
Then I just wondered if you could talk also about if another year of the pilot would help the whole scale situation too, because you were saying how this in some ways is better for, sort of medium or smaller birds too. And that's interesting for Vermont with all our emphasis on
resilience of small farms.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of where it started, that the smaller farms are completely intrigued with what this can do. You know, they get that if you can set the fence on your phone and it takes 5 minutes instead of having to go out in the field, take an hour and a half, they get it. But, you know, we're still in the show me stage. So one of the pilots is to build it out a little bit bigger with a dairy farm. We've been at 20 cows and we're looking at 40 cows. And the kind of counterintuitive is that with the upfront cost, the smaller the herd, the quicker the payback, because you don't have to buy as many collars. And if you graze 20 animals and you graze 40 animals, your time to set the fence is pretty close. So the payback for the smaller group of collars is faster. So I got to try that out a little bit on a bigger farm and see where it starts to scale up. The other place where scale comes into this is in the solar arrays. The solar array already has a setup. So the advantage of the virtual fence is less. But for a larger array, where you are rotationally grazing, the payback, the impact on the labor savings should show up, and we're looking for the scale there. The grazers, sheep graze, the grazer is really good. So we're working to look for the sweet spot scale with solar arrays. I have no doubt, to your point, that in the next 5 years, solar arrays the larger scale solar arrays will be using virtual fencing. And I don't think they need too much push from us. There aren't too many variables there. So it's kind of one little prod to just get it going, and then we get out of the way of that. It's the utilities and the knotweed. You know, that's going to take some time, and that's what the public interest is. So that's where the public-private partnership, I think, really does come to bear. Yeah.
Are we gonna be able to find enough goats? That's the because like the knotweed, that's phenomenal. I do see that for the state of Vermont would be behind if because that's a real value. I know it's ruined a lot of water sides of the rivers from, you know, Rochester all the way down. It's
really
Randolph. It's terrible.
You can watch it happen right in front of you.
And I think the public would be behind it, and mainly meat goats for that, correct?
Correct. Yes.
So
Yes.
and you have farmers that are interested in.
And it's the real surprise of my job. I figured if I built it, they would come, but you got to go out and find them because it's meat goats versus milk goats, right?
Mm-hmm.
We have the herder that was down south, and she's in for another round, and I'm negotiating with a herder to do ski areas and the utilities to the north. So it's doing what I had hoped. The idea of vegetation management as a new business for meat goats is starting to emerge around the country. And this offers a business opportunity, a base of a business opportunity. So you don't have to do 3 acre, 5 acre, a whole bunch of jobs and be hauling goats all over the place. Have a ski area, a utility, and then a few residences that are overgrown as a base of business. And I'm pretty sure I've got a fellow out of West Barnet who's going to be a go. So then I'll have 2 instead of 1 last year. And then for the Mad River, it's a kind of a combination of UVM trying to seed the market as well. So that would be a 3rd. So yeah, thanks for the question, because it's another thing I think that this will push forward, that in the absence of a public-private partnership, the market may take a while to get there, to your point. Because I think the state put in a lot of effort to do goats, and then and so there's sort of a retrenchment, and this is another opportunity to seed the market.
When you showed us that project with the knotweed, how many goats were in that area to vet?
That was 100 goats.
And how big an area do you feel, or do you believe that they impacted?
I believe the rule of thumb is 100 goats is 2 to 3 acres a day. I believe that's the rule of thumb. Yeah, I don't know. I can't remember if I showed you the movie where you see where they've been. It's just amazing. Yeah. Yeah. But they were, like I said, they were taken off. So, once they had been through the knotweed, so, yeah, I,
And do they have to get that when it's younger? They're not we when it's younger, do you know, or does it matter?
we're starting to get beyond my knowledge.
Okay.
But I think you go in and then you let it come up a little bit again, then you go in again to get to the root of it. And that's the trick in this. The other piece with the knotweed, I had some discussion with Stowe last fall, Mount Mansfield ski area. We were talking ski trails and he said, do they like knotweed? Just out of the blue. And I said, sure, they love knotweed. He said, well, the knotweed is coming up around the pond for the snowmaking. There's two problems. One is the knotweed around the pond, but the second thing is that they're blowing knotweed up on the mountain because it's in the pond. Yeah. So, that commercially,
Yeah, very true.
buy an oil filter now or your engine later, So that really struck me that, I think everybody's got knotweed on the mind for good reasons. So,
And we got an animal that loves it, which is great.
yeah. And to John's point, the Littleac Foundation, this is a primary concern. They were my original funders on more farm runoff, that if you can use, as I, highlighted every presentation, virtual fencing really does quite an effective job in creating exclusionary zones for sensitive wet areas. And that's going to be a big benefit if we can figure out how to harness that. And that's where Cree got involved, but she's come on to the knotweed issue and she's in behind the Bad River project. So there's a good support there. It's not a whole lot of money, but Cree's in as I would say the legislature and the Littleac Foundation are kind of the anchors for this venture. And I would hope that you guys can find a way. And I'm happy to. As a former legislative counsel, a little awkward to be lobbying you for money, I have to say. And not having Bobby here Senator Starr here to, do his thing, as you said, Brian, it's not quite clear. And I honestly don't know.
Yeah.
That was kind of Senator Starr in my division of labor to figure out what needs to be done. And Bobby had the experience and time to figure out how to do that. And so Senator Westman's on the committee now, however.
Yep.
So we can certainly talk to Senator Westman.
Absolutely.
Get his thoughts.
Do you know if the ski areas talk to each other? Like if it worked well for Magic, Killington has got a huge TIF project going that it's gonna be the village center that'll be built eventually, and we're talking 20, 25 years, is gonna just make transformational changes to that whole thing.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of room there.
Yeah.
And I don't know whether it would help if whoever's running Magic says to the 10 new owners of Killington, because they're local people now.
Yeah.
Hey, you ought to try this thing out. It really worked well.
So in the line that says private donations, and the broadband board actually, as I talked to you when I was here, the Vermont Covered, the nonprofit that's trying to expand cell service, is we're trying to figure out how this can be an example for of why we need to improve cell service in the state. The selling point is public safety, that we have the dead spots are making it hard for ambulances to do their work using cell service. And this would be another example of another sector that's affected by it. So they're in for some of the funding and in support for broadband. The funding behind that organization, he's actually one of the investors that bought out Killington.
Oh, okay.
So the discussion with Killington is my suggestion to him that because of all the things that Killington is involved with doing, the timing's they've got enough on their plate right now. So we're focused on JP, because Jay is sort of this insular ski area up north, and they're very innovative. And that's, so Jay and Burke are the next two up.
Okay.
And they're, I think, good. They're Killington's big complex operation. Those two are relatively small, approachable like Magic was. So we go small Magic, upscale a little bit to Jay, add Burke, prove the point, then approach Killington. That's the strategy. And Andy Stenger is running the mountain operations up at Jay. He's on the phone with Paul Bateman, the general manager. Magic, to your point, they're absolutely talking to each other. Yeah.
Well, good.
Yeah.
Anything else, committee? Yes,
Is this committee talk at all about silviculture? I know House Ag, it comes up a lot, but we never really get very far into it. And I just wondered, this seems to dovetail with that, you know.
you guys have all day. We have half a day.
Exactly. Let's start it. Yeah, start the conversation as well.
Yeah. Well, good. Well, thank you for coming in. Good discussion and good honest discussion, to be fair. So we thank you very much.
Always. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Dan. Good to see you. John, thank you.
Thanks.
Will you send me electronic copies of?
I will do that. Yeah. Yeah.
Are
Not
we
that I know I was
good
doing
to
this,
talk
I
about
will
one wait for a little bit or,
What's that?
I know we had, it looked like we might have, Michael Grady might have been coming in. Was Michael coming in on 108?
No, I don't have them in this week.
Okay. Do you want to, take a little bit of break and talk about some of that or what do you want to do?
How about if I do this, because this will be a better, I did a synopsis of it.
Yeah,
What if I just send you the synopsis of it?
yeah. Oh, that's good. Good. Okay.
I'll send it to you, and this is it, and I'll just send it to you electronically.
Okay, that sounds good.
And then you can take a look at it. I'm working on,
Get you confused.
some witnesses with, Linda. And
Okay.
then, we'll follow up with,
Thank you.
There.
Fair enough. I just want to make sure they
Okay,
got
yeah.
to it. And, anything else? We can have an easy day here today, or we can continue further. Anything else that anybody wants to
Can't
bring
think
up?
of anything.
It looks like we're gonna have our last vote on our right to farm bill. Hopefully that will.
That's third reading today, right?
Third reading, yeah, so that should pass today, hopefully, and you still don't have any word about when you're gonna report?
Today?
Oh,
No, 60's up today.
Oh, nice, okay, good, all good, well, good luck with that,
Yeah.
comfortable with that?
Yeah.
Good,
Yeah.
good. And, yeah, so we're, miscellaneous ag bills in the other committee, we'll, see how that works out. And other than that,